today. Welcome back. Hello and welcome back to the third webinar of our Fall Money Counts webinar series hosted by the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center here at Penn State. We are home-based at University Park campus, but we serve all of the Commonwealth campuses, and we actually do a lot within the community as well, surprisingly. So as much as we can push financial wellness and financial education out to those that need it, we do. My name is Sarah Metzger. I am going to be your presenter today, and I do want to just thank you again for taking time out of your afternoon or morning, depending on where you're tuning in from, to join me and learn more about food budgeting today. If you are new to this webinar series, welcome. If you're new to Penn State as well, if you're a first-year student tuning into your first webinar with us, congrats on coming to Penn State and welcome. I'm really happy that you're all here. Just for some background, every semester, the Penn State Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center hosts a bi-monthly webinar, which explores popular money topics that folks of all ages and stages find timely and relevant. So I know we've got students in on the call today. We've got some employees, faculty, and staff. We also have graduate students in representing, and a couple of parents and community members as well. Everybody should be able to pull out a takeaway from today's conversation about how to make your food dollars stretch as far as humanly possible. That's the goal. Quickly, before I dive into the content today, I do want to point out a couple of quick housekeeping items. I do this at the start of every semester, or rather, the start of every webinar. Geez, you think it was like a Monday morning at 8 o'clock. Let me get it together. Okay, so first off, this webinar is being recorded, and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel by the end of the week. Typically, it gets pushed out sooner, but I don't want to overpromise anything. So if you have to step out or leave the webinar for whatever reason, or leave and come back and you missed a chunk of it, you are more than welcome to go back and rewatch or capture what you missed on our YouTube channel. So I sent that through the chat earlier, but I know we had some folks who just joined in. So let me reshare this information. Our YouTube page is linked in the chat message that I just shared. I also want to point out that the chat is active. It's for anybody to use. I'm going to share a couple of links here and there, but the majority of the resources I'll talk about today are going to be posted with our YouTube recording, just because there are a lot of links to share. So I'm going to encourage you to go to the YouTube page, bookmark that, and come back to it after the fact so you can pick up some of these links that I reference as I go through today. The Q&A is also active, so if you would prefer to send a question anonymously, you are more than welcome to do so. As I see questions pop up, I will answer them, but if I don't see them, which is entirely possible because I have a very crowded screen right now, if I don't see your questions in real time, I will most certainly answer them at the end of the session, so just hang tight on that one, okay? And then finally, if you are attending today's webinar from SMEAL's Ethical Leadership Challenge, we will be sending your attendance information to the program coordinator. So there's nothing that you need to do on your end. I know if you're an older student, you're probably used to the QR codes from the past. That is not anything that you need access to. In this case, nowadays, we just send your participation information direct to the program coordinators. So just hang out, sit back, relax, learn, talk about food budgeting, engage in the session, make as much of it as you can, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and get started then with all that housekeeping out of the way. If there's anything you all need, or if for some reason you stop hearing me or something like that, technical difficulties, please go to the chat and let me know. I do have that open full time, so I will see any messages come through from there, okay? I'm excited to have this conversation. Let's get at it. It's important to first say, I think, or recognize at least, that food is a really big part of our daily lives. I work a lot with first-year students here at Penn State, and when I ask them, what's the last thing you spent money on, 99% of the time it's food. And that's a pretty common response too for those of us who aren't even in school anymore. I've got my drink right here. I did grocery shopping very recently. Food is a big part of our daily lives, no doubt. And learning to manage this expense can really support your overall financial wellness. There's no doubt about it. However, in looking at this slide, it is really important that I recognize that we are all susceptible to unexpected financial strains, high costs of living, and that's true in a lot more places than it used to be, especially those of you who are living here in State College area or folks who are in more metropolitan areas. Like, it's expensive out there. And sometimes we might experience gaps in support. And all of this can make food budgeting and buying food items difficult or even impossible at times. I think that's a really important thing to recognize, that food insecurity is real, and there may be some folks on this call who are actively experiencing food insecurity. So in an effort to reduce stress, hopefully your stress, any stigma around this, and to ensure that each of you are able to put food on the table for yourselves and your families, I do want to just first share some local food resources before I jump into the mechanics of food budgeting. So what you see here, a lot of hyperlinks, right? These are the links that I said are going to be accessible on our YouTube page going along with this video once it's posted. Do check those out. You can also access all of this through a Google search. I'm going to break down these resources in just a minute. Pull up a second tab if you're on your computer, or open up your browser if you're on your phone tuning in on Zoom, and start to do some Google search on the resources that you feel like might be appropriate for you to tap into as I describe them, okay? So first we have the Lions Pantry at Penn State. Here at UP, it is the official on-campus food pantry. It is located at 133 Bluebell Road, which, if you're not familiar with the street names on campus, that's up near the intramural field. So Lion Surplus is up there. It's like down the road a little bit from the art museum, the Arboretum, the law school. If you head north, or at least what I think is north, towards like East Hall, but past, you're going to find the food pantry there. Now, as far as I understand, it is currently closed for renovations, but I do highly recommend you give them a follow on social media to stay up to date on their hours of operation and available services, as they're doing some things within their facility up there. Okay, but that is a place where you could go to get free food on campus if you needed to. Okay, it is a food pantry like any other kind of food pantry you might see in a community. Okay, but this one is just based, excuse me, it's based on campus here at University Park. Now, as a heads up, because I know I have folks tuning in from elsewhere, not just University Park, most of the Commonwealth campuses also offer an on-site food pantry. And most of that information is going to be available on the respective campuses' websites. So if you're out at Hazleton, for example, or Abington or Berks, and you would like to tap into the food pantry resources offered locally within the campus there, please do some Google searching. You'll get to the website that has more information about whether, where and when and how you can access the food pantry resources at your respective Commonwealth campus. Okay. Now, next up in this list here, we've got SNAP. So you see the link for SNAP. That stands for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is a government program that helps people buy groceries. If you qualify, you will get monthly funds on what's called an EBT card, and that stands for Electronic Benefits Transfer Card. And you use that card to spend on food at grocery stores and actually farmers markets as well. Maybe not every farmers market, but many of them, which, surprised me, when I first heard about this way back when. But that's really exciting, right? Because you have access to some of the local produce, the good healthy stuff. SNAP makes that possible if you are, of course, eligible. So eligibility for SNAP is based on specific household requirements. What's important to note, because I do have a lot of students in on the call, both grad and undergrad students at Penn State may be eligible for SNAP benefits if they qualify for federal work study, or if you have a student aid index score of 0 or less on your FAFSA, so that SAI number that you get when you fill out your FAFSA application. So if you got a score of 0 or less, that may make you eligible for SNAP benefits. And for those of you who are based here at University Park campus, Market East in Finley Commons accepts SNAP EBT. So that card you're able to use at Market East for things like fruits, veggies, cereal, dairy, stuff like that, some of that fresh food, and a couple of other items as well, which they would be able to explain to you like what's eligible and what's not. Okay. More information about SNAP for students can be found online, particularly here in PA. There's a pa.gov website under the Department of Human Services page. It's going to give you more information about eligibility. And folks are also going to be able to, in general, apply for SNAP benefits if you do your research and you feel like, excuse me, your family information, excuse me, that your family information, your household information makes you eligible. Okay, so take advantage of that if need be. There are other public assistance programs out there that can help provide funds to cover for expenses like housing, heating, healthcare, things through PA directly that are going to help to free up some more money for food costs. So I know we're talking about food today, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there are other assistance programs that are going to lower some of your other expenses and then free up that cash for things like food and stuff that you need on like the daily basis, right? At University Park campus, there are also a couple of community food resources that both staff, students, and faculty all have access to. You see those listed here on the screen as well. So that's going to include the State College Food Bank, the Center Helps Emergency Food Pantry, the St. Andrews Community Cafe Dinner, which offers a meal every Thursday between 5 and 7 p.m. Please note that with the State College Food Bank, you do need to get a referral from the Office of Student Care and Advocacy here at Penn State. And that is something that you can get that process started by filling out what we call the basic needs request form. So if you're on the Student Affairs website, or if you're doing a Google search and you type in Student Care and Advocacy, Penn State basic needs request form, you're able to fill that out. And that's going to get the ball rolling on getting any kind of referrals that you need for food resources within the community, or anything else. The basic needs request form you will find is not just limited to food resources. And if you are experiencing something like housing insecurity, in addition to food insecurity, that form is going to be more of like a one-stop shop for you to get some support. So definitely take advantage of that. Okay. I hope this is helpful. I want to talk more about the mechanics of food budgeting, but again, it would be a little silly for me to not take time at the beginning of this session to acknowledge that there are definitely some challenges around food budgeting and paying for food and dining on a budget in general, especially nowadays with things as expensive as they are, and inflation where it's at, and challenges around income and earning and balancing a lot of financial responsibilities that we all are currently balancing. So I do hope that this is helpful. Please continue to do your Google searching, explore these resources more, and take advantage of them as needed. They're here for you and I, and anybody else that who might be in need. So continue to push this information out as well. So even if you don't need access to some of these resources, if you know somebody who does, please do let them know. Okay. So now that we've got those resources in your food budgeting toolkit, let's move on to explore, honestly, why the heck food budgeting can be so difficult. And that maybe is just me speaking, but I've heard from others that we have, we share sentiments that this can be darn difficult. What makes it so? Food is, we talked about earlier, a really big expense. It's a regular expense in our budgets. I think the challenge is that monthly food costs can swing, and they can swing upwards of 20% or more of our income every single month. That's a lot of our income. I mean, second to housing, which tends to be or take up like the biggest chunk of our monthly income, food comes second to that. And that's a lot of money. And I think that this is due in part, I mean, I know this is due in part to rising food costs, inflation, the fluctuation that we see in food costs. We've seen eggs do some crazy things. Eggs took a roller coaster ride over the last year or so in terms of how much they cost. So with that said, like recognizing that food is a variable expense, we're never going to pay the same price each week for what is in our shopping cart. Although I'm sure we try. At least I do. I try. I'm sure you do too. And that really ends up making food budgeting like a budget within a budget. So like meats, produce, shelf-stable items, they change prices all the time as we see inflation continue to creep up and sales at the grocery stores, they come and go. So, we're all having to adjust our shopping list each week. It's not just like, how much are we going to spend, but like, what are we going to buy within like that $100 limit that we set for ourselves or whatever. Maybe we're able to buy meat last week, but not this week, or this produce this week, but not next week kind of thing. So it can be challenging. It's not easy. We're all just trying to keep some stability. It's not easy. I get it. It's not easy for me either, but there is hope and there are ways to make dining on a budget possible. Okay. So for the rest of this webinar, I'm going to cover habits. I'm going to cover a couple of healthy habits, I call them, that will help you to create a manageable and effective and a cost-saving food budget, all in the service of increasing your overall financial well-being. Certainly we want to feel like we are in control of our spending on food, and we want to feel like we're not getting the short end of the stick or being gouged by all these expensive food items. But like more so, if we're able to reduce our food costs without sacrificing on nutrition, of course, like still eating all the meals we need, getting all the vitamins and minerals and all that like healthy things that are suggested we consume, we could still save money while we do that. That money saved is money that goes towards financial goals, investing, savings, things like that. And that can just really help better balance out security and freedom with our finances in life, which is the goal. Like that is what financial well-being is all about. So let's get into those habits. And if these are habits that you already use, at least some of them, kudos. Shout out in the chat how they're useful or how you've kind of adapted them, some of the suggestions or pro tips that you'd like to offer others. And if some of these habits are new, think about how you can start to adopt them in the next couple of days, weeks, months, like wherever you find that you've got the bandwidth to take more intentional action when you are out shopping and when you're planning for your food expenses on a week-to-week or month-to-month basis, okay? So healthy habit number one, and honestly, I would say this is probably the most important of the habits that I'm going to share with you today, is to have a plan, and specifically to have a meal plan. And this goes for every single person in the call, students, staff, faculty, parents, community members, all of us, me included. It is really important to have a plan of what you're going to eat before you can budget on how much those meals and those ingredients are going to cost, okay? No plan really means having no real control over your food spending. That I'll speak for myself at least. When I say that no plan also means like that I'm going to be more likely to just order out when I'm hungry. I know that there are at least a few of you in this call who can relate. So not having a plan is not a really good idea. Let's have some sort of structure. Let's have some sort of strategy, go-to meals, like a list, a calendar, something, some sort of plan that's going to allow you to then budget and like figure out your food costs based on it. Okay. So when you're making this plan, it's really important that you keep, I think at least, meals that you love in rotation. Okay. Meal planning that doesn't work for people sometimes because they like are, they pick recipes they don't like, or some sort of like app generates recipes that they're like, I don't like this either, or whatever. Like find the foods that you like and find the foods that are easy enough for you to cook or that you're going to have enough energy to cook. We all have different bandwidths out there, especially students, honestly, faculty and staff too, those of you with families, with kids, like you got to find what works for you. You are going to eat these things that you like more likely than not. You're not going to waste the food, not going to be throwing cash in the trash if things start to spoil before you use them. I will say, if it's easy enough for you to download an app that has a cache of recipes, do so. You can like and save those. You can take, recipes and save them in your notes app. You can even use AI if you want to create these plans, but having some sort of vision for what you're going to eat in the next week and how much it's going to cost you, what you need to buy is going to make food budgeting and like your ability to be in control over your food spending much easier. I'll speak for myself, at least when it comes to AI. I have used artificial intelligence to build weekly meal plans for myself and my husband in the past. And honestly, it was surprisingly useful. So here's essentially what I did. I told ChatGPT, which I don't know, use your AI of choice. I'm not super savvy with AI and all I really know is ChatGPT. So that's who I gave directions to. I told ChatGPT to create a week-long meal plan for myself, for 2 adults actually, for myself and my husband. And I told ChatGPT, I want items purchased from Aldi because that's where we prefer to shop. And I wanted the week of meals to cost under $100. Like that was the maximum. And so that information plus noting some dietary preferences as well as dietary restrictions and the number of meals that I needed, like I want breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack, or just like lunch and dinner and a snack or something like that, whatever it was. I've done some variations. With all that information plugged in, ChatGPT actually produced a 7-day meal plan for me to use that included recipes, directions to cook the recipes, and a shopping list for my trip to Aldi. And honestly, it was game changing. It was probably like the most exciting thing that I've seen AI do, to be honest with you. And like, I see AI as like a tool to make life easier. Like this was like a no-brainer for me. It took all of a few seconds, maybe a minute to think through the prompt that I wanted to give ChatGPT, but then to have something instantaneously spit back out at me that I could go, okay, and hop in the car and go to Aldi and do my shopping for the week ahead. Like that, to me, it kind of blew my mind. So game changing. I'll say whatever your style is, there's going to be a meal planning method out there that will work for you. You just have to go find it. Okay. And again, this is information for everybody in the call. All of us, regardless of kind of our age and stage and lifestyle, can and should plan the meals that we are going to eat in the next week or the next couple of days so that we have better control over our purchasing of items in the grocery store and overall like expense costs associated with that. Okay. Now I'll say here too that like if you're a student, because you might go, well, I'm a student and I live on campus. So what am I going to do about this, Sarah? How can I meal plan? Well, you can. It's still possible. Let me contextualize it for you. If you're a student and you are eating the majority of your meals on campus, it's important to know where on campus the cheapest option for your meals is going to be. Now, you don't necessarily have as much control over what food is offered, if you're eating at the all you care to eat commons, but you at least have more control over planning where to eat and how much that's going to cost you. Okay. So I want to break down the meal plans a little bit here, because I do find that students, especially new students, if I got any first year students on the call, there tends to be a little bit of confusion around how the meal plans work. So let me break this down. The meal plan, the campus meal plan, offers the best discount for any student who eats 10 or more meals per week on campus. I'm just going to start by saying that. Okay. Now at University Park, this would be the meals that you do eat in those all you care to eat dining commons. Okay. This is not going to include eating your meals at places like the Hub or Panera or Panda Express where you're not getting any discounts, you're getting discounts on the food that you get at the all you care to eat dining commons, okay? It's accepted, the plan, these different meal plans, they are accepted at every campus dining location and also across the state at different Commonwealth campuses. So like if you are visiting your friends, you're, heading around town, like trying, you're here at UP, but you're going back towards Abington to visit with a friend or vice versa. One of our student ambassadors, actually, he's out at Barron. He just came up to University Park for the football game last week, right? Like you can bring your meal plan with you and use it at these different campuses. So keep that in mind. I want to point out, because like I said earlier, the meal plan tends to confuse students. I want to point out that the meal plan is made up of two components, which is what you see here on the screen. Okay, that's going to include the base cost and the dining dollars. Your base cost, see how it's the same for each meal plan level, level 1, 2, and excuse the typo, that should say level 3. That base cost is kind of like a membership fee. So that's covering, keeping the lights on in the dining halls, paying for the staff to prepare and serve the food, things like that. Like it is your access into the all you care to eat dining commons. And then your dining dollars is actually what you have to spend. That's what's on your Penn State ID or what's in your app that you go and you're scanning. That's what you're making purchases with. And that has a different price or a different amount per level, which you can see. So a student who has a level 1 meal plan has 947 dining dollars to spend, for example, in the fall semester. And then it just goes up from there if you continue to level up your meal plan, okay? So with these 3 levels, just know that like, if you came into the fall semester and you didn't make a selection on what level you wanted, your housing and food service contract defaulted you to level 2. That's if you didn't make a choice, but you can change your level at any time. So like when we talk dining on a budget in the context of being a student on campus, you are not locked into a meal plan level just because you did or did not make a selection, excuse me, at the beginning of the semester. If you are tracking your spending across dining dollars, and I'll talk about how you can do that in just a minute, if you see that you're not spending as much as you thought you would, you can most certainly level down or vice versa, level up if you need to. Now, if you were to level down, that's a way to save you some money. You're going to get some money back. Dining on a budget, right? Get more money back. That's more money to like save or spend on other college related expenses or whatever it may be, right? Something to note with these meal plans, okay? And this is where I think there's just confusion. There's more confusion here too. So let me clarify, okay? Leftover dining dollars from this fall semester are going to roll over into the spring semester, okay? So any extra dollars you have in the fall, let's say you got 20, 30, 40, all of that's going to roll over and be added to the balance for your spring semester dining dollars, okay? But dining dollars that are left at the end of the spring semester are going to be lost. So it's important that you either use it or lose it or decrease your level if need be. You do have the option of donating your leftover dining dollars in the spring as well, but some sort of decision needs to be made, and you need to think ahead to that point, especially if you are somebody who's not using as much of your dining dollars as you anticipated. If you want to get to the end of the spring semester and then, go crazy shopping and trying to blow through the rest of your dining dollars in the market and wherever else, like you could do that if you want, but it's real money. And so if you really are trying to dine on a budget as a student living on campus, you're going to want to go ahead and make some adjustments to your plans if you see your eating habits don't necessarily match with what you expected them to be when making a selection in the first place. Okay. You can make those changes on eLiving. So if you weren't sure about where to do that, if you log into eLiving, you're able to go ahead and make those changes there. Okay. Now I mentioned a short time ago that there is a way to track your spending. I mean, surely you can do that within eLiving. You can see where you're spending your dining dollars, how much, etc. But for folks who are really trying, like students who are really trying to get a wrangle on this and have a bird's eye view of their spending over the course of a couple of weeks or the semester, I highly encourage you to check out our meal plan budget tool. So like the Financial and Life Skills Center, one of our former ambassadors, had a spreadsheet that he made for himself in his first year of college to help keep track of his spending with his dining dollars. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant tool, unlike one I've seen anywhere else, honestly, for college students living on campus. It will calculate, based on where you say you're eating over the course of a week, how much you're using of your dining dollars and where those dining dollars are going across like the all-you-can-eat commons versus like the Hub or Panera or some of these places that don't provide a discount, things like that. And so it really gives you a comprehensive picture of how your spending looks with your dining dollars and will then allow you to make any adjustments or informed adjustments if you need to, okay? To get a hold of that budget tool, you're going to go to our website, financialliteracy.psu.edu. There's a section called resources. If you pop into that section, you're going to see it available for download. And if you're looking at it for the first time, and it might be a lot to look at for the first time, especially if you're not somebody who's the biggest fan of Excel. There is a video tutorial on our YouTube page that will help walk you through how to use the meal plan budget tool if you need assistance, or you're welcome to schedule an appointment with one of our financial coaches to get direct guidance if you would like. So all of that can be found at, what am I trying to say? financialliteracy.psu.edu. All right, I'm going to go to the chat really quick. We got a question here. Is the base cost per semester or for the whole year? This is a great question. So that is per semester. Okay, that is per semester. Hope that clarifies. So for example, a level 1 meal plan per semester altogether, your base cost plus your dining dollars, you're going to pay $2,657. Okay, and that number just goes up based on the higher meal plan level that you have, and those two totals that you see there. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Great question though. Great question. Maybe something else to note here too, because it's listed on the screen, this Lion Cash. Lion Cash funds never expire, okay, and they are available until you graduate. So I just want to make a note of that in case anybody was curious. I'm not going to go too much more into Lion Cash. What I will say is if you have more questions about like meal plans and eating on campus, any of the campuses, if you go to liveon.psu.edu, you're able to access Penn State dining and get more information about how all of this works. It's good stuff. It's good information. It's a lot of information, which I think is why there's sometimes confusion, but hopefully less now that I broke that down a little bit. Okay, I'm going to keep on keeping on. Holy cow. I should have had more breakfast myself today. Wake my brain up a little bit, and move us into habit number 2. Change how you shop if needed. So I'll put a little asterisk on this because some of you maybe are excellent grocery shoppers. Maybe you don't always have a plan for what you're going to eat, but you are really attuned to like the sales, or you try to shop at like the cheapest places. Aldi is typically one of the least expensive grocery stores in the area here in State College. So maybe you're cognizant in other ways. Please don't skip on making the meal plan. So I'm just going to like go back to that healthy habit number 1, like make sure you have a meal plan set up for yourself so you know what to shop for. And then consider the following questions. Do you have a complete shopping list based on that plan, where you're only going to buy what's on the list and nothing extra? And I know if you're like me and you go and you shop when you're hungry, you're going to get extra things. You're going to get that candy bar at the checkout line. I get it, right? Do you have a complete shopping list that you are going to stick to? And have you shopped your pantry first? So this is actually something I think that my husband and I have gotten pretty good at, is we will, as we're planning for our meals, we are always making sure to check in the pantry first. What do we have available? Same in the fridge, same in the freezer. And I think we got to this point after we realized we had bought like 3 or 4 containers of cumin, the seasoning, because we kept thinking we didn't have any cumin. We needed cumin for the recipes that we were going to cook. And so we kept buying these containers of cumin. And we got to a point where I was like, this is not no, this is not good. This is a waste of money. Not a huge amount, but it's enough that like clearly we're not doing something as well as we could. And so we've gotten into a better habit of like shopping the pantry first, shopping our fridge and our freezer first, sometimes even taking pictures of these spaces so that when we're out at the grocery store and we're like double checking, or if we didn't, have a fully complete shopping list, at least we have a photo reference to say like, okay, we do have the cumin, or we do have the paprika, or we do have the chicken broth, or whatever it is that we need. Okay. Do what works for you. If you're cool shopping at Aldi, shop at Aldi. It tends to be pretty inexpensive compared to some of our other chain stores in State College. Wegmans tends to be on the pricier side. But I also recognize that Aldi has limits in what it offers in terms of food products. So you're not going to be able to buy leeks, for example. We like to make a leek recipe, but Aldi doesn't sell leeks. And so sometimes you do have to shop at a couple of different places or decide to just shop at one. If you do have one or two grocery stores you'd like to hit up, check out their apps. Check to see if the apps have any coupons or deals built in, or just use the online ordering to prevent yourself from doing that kind of like slow roll through the grocery store where you're putting more and more in your shopping cart simply because you're hungry, not that you actually need some of those extra items because they weren't part of your original meal plan either. So do what works for you. I will say that like online ordering has been game changing. It was, it came out of the pandemic and became very popular at that point, but it sure does help in terms of saving me time and energy, but then also making sure that like I am sticking with my grocery list. I'm making sure that I'm buying things that I only know I need for the meals I've planned for the week. And that also too, I can see the grand total. I can see how much my grocery bill is going to be before I actually even agree to swipe my card, so to speak, right? The challenge otherwise is when we shop in store, unless you've got a running ledger in your head and you're doing a lot of mental math or you're doing something, calculations on your phone, you're going to not know how much your grocery total, your bill total is going to be until you get to the checkout line and they scan everything and you go, oh my gosh, is that how much I put into this cart? I didn't realize, right? So leverage some of the tools and techniques available to you that we've, adopted over the years or that we've seen have been useful over the years as we've gone through changes in the ways that we shop in general, right? I'm going to take a peek at the chat here. We have a note that unadvertised sales in local grocery stores have helped me build menu items, so meal planning around that. That's awesome. About those items too, yes, like whatever is on sale but isn't necessarily advertised. We're going to talk about sales actually here in just a moment. So speaking of, there are definitely ways to find deals. In this case, we've got unadvertised sales in local grocery stores. So that's, not something you're going to see in like the weekly flyer that comes out, but deals that are still available once you walk in on the store. You see it on the shelf listed, or you maybe see it listed in the app, even though it's not like front page or in their weekly flyer. Looking for coupons is not a bad thing. Like looking for sales is a great way to save money, but I will forewarn you all because coupons are a marketing tactic. Sometimes coupons encourage us to spend on, let's say, maybe non-generic items. So we may be paying more than we would with a generic, even with a coupon for a name brand item. Or we may end up buying things with coupons that we didn't otherwise need, but we feel like we're getting a good deal because there's a coupon for it. So I would say, be very cognizant of the coupons that you see available to you and how you want to utilize them and if they're actually allowing you to save money when you grocery shop, okay? Sometimes coupons are not the best deal. Looking at some of the other suggestions on the screen, save with seasonal produce. If you are somebody who is not too picky of a food eater, there are going to be produce items that go on sale or are better priced as the seasons roll through. So like right now we've got apples, cranberries as we move into fall that are probably going to go on sale or be plentiful within the store, squashes, pumpkins, things like that that are more abundant. Corn, we're getting towards the end of, I think, corn season here. I think most of the corn has probably been harvested at this point, but take a look at those seasonal produce items. You might find more sales with them because they are abundant, or more abundant at least. And, for some of you, if you want to buy in bulk, it might help you save money. So if you are somebody who shops at like Sam's Club, for example, you pay an annual membership to, be able to go in there and buy. Trying to think, my husband and I sometimes go in there and we shop, and you're, getting 3 boxes of cereal as opposed to one individual box, and you may save money on 3 boxes of cereal at one time versus just buying an individual box at the regular grocery store. Like, if you know you're going to eat that cereal and it's part of your meal planning for the next month or so, like, okay, if that makes sense to buy it, but it typically is going to cost you a little bit more. So you have to run the numbers and make sure, like, okay, if I'm buying this in bulk, I know I'm going to eat it. And I know that it actually is more cost effective than buying an individual item, and that I've got the space for it too. And that whatever it is that I'm buying is hopefully shelf stable, or something that at least can be kept in the freezer so that it, I can get its full use without it spoiling before it's able to be used and eaten, right? Kind of thing. Quick note here coming through the chat, the app Flip will provide the local sale flyers, and you can get alerts for sales on things you'll use the most. That is awesome. I've never heard of that app, but it is definitely one to take a look at. Speaking of apps, I'll talk about the Penn State Go app in just a second, but before I get there, 2 last notes here. Don't check out at the checkout. So that means as you maybe are scanning your items, because a lot of us do that nowadays, or you've got the cashier scanning items, make sure you're watching that total, make sure that things aren't being double scanned, or that if you expected there to be a discount, that discount actually was applied. So don't space out is essentially what that's saying. And then as you're shopping the aisles, look high and low. This totally makes sense, but it didn't dawn on me until somebody else gave me this advice, that like at eye level, when we're in the grocery store, that's where we're going to see most of our name brand products, which are going to be the more expensive products. So your name brand ketchup, your name brand corn, canned corn, things like that. Like, that's what's going to generally cost you the most. And then our generic brands are going to be high and low, and those are typically going to be cheaper. They may even be more on sale than some of the name brand products. Excuse me. So look high and low. So sorry. And also check out some of those end caps in the grocery store. So there may be clearance items or other sale items on the end caps as well that the grocery store would, wants you to take a look at. Or is maybe not wanting you to take a look at because they want you to buy the full price items. Okay. So that's my last pro tip for the deals, but going back to the app. So we had a recommendation for the app called Flip. What I will say for my Penn Staters, if you are in the Penn State Go app, you are able to look for deals. There are some food deals that will pop up on the app every now and again. You can check the value menu, combo options for some of the places that you can order ahead at. There are market sales. Sometimes you'll see flyers in there, or really any other deals are going to be included within that app. So if you don't have it already downloaded, I highly encourage you to do so. The last thing I'll note, for any of the Penn State employees on the call, what the second phone image is. It's Workday. Workday is the Penn State hiring page. So if you are a student, I'm speaking directly to my students here, both undergrad and grad students, if you need a job or thinking about getting an on-campus job, you want to get really creative with dining on a budget, students who work at Penn State campus dining, you get free meals before or after work, and then $2 meals at any other time, which is a great way to save money and really say, like, I'm stretching my dining dollars, I'm dining on a budget. And you get to work at the same time. So you're getting a paycheck, you're getting valuable, transferable, professional skills, right? Even working in dining, there's a lot to learn in that space as a professional. Like, go ahead and take advantage of that. I think Penn State dining is pretty much always hiring. And if you go to the Penn State Workday page, you will see all of those positions that you are eligible to apply for, okay? So just want to make a quick note of that. Moving on to habit number 4, reconsider dining out. Y'all knew we were going to get to this point, right? You were just waiting, like, when is Sarah going to tell me to stop eating out at restaurants or getting DoorDash? Like, yeah, this was coming. And listen, I'm not trying to call anybody out. Like, I'll be the first to call my own self out and say that, like, you know what? Last week was kind of a tough week, and my husband and I ate out more than we typically do. Things happen. But we do, folks do it a lot on average, okay? Folks are eating out on average almost 6 times a week. So that is like DoorDash, fast food, picking up a bite at, the grocery store, or sorry, not the grocery store. What am I trying to say? The gas station, like picking up some snacks at the gas station, stuff like that. And that adds up. Like, we pay for convenience. We pay more for convenience when somebody else makes the food for us or when it's available really quickly, right? And that, as like a meal plan, like my plan is to just eat out all the time, is generally not going to be sustainable, especially for somebody who's trying to live on a budget, or at least for somebody who's trying to balance financial wellness and figure out how to otherwise purpose their food dollars in a way to like help them save, for example. And I've got a great video that's going to break this down, that like, if you can change some of your habits around eating out, the amount of money it frees up and what you can do with that extra money is pretty incredible. So I'm going to take you to a video here in just a second. And if I could have somebody in the chat just confirm that you can hear and see the video, I would really appreciate it. It comes from 2 Cents from PBS. These are the cutest. It's a husband-wife couple. They're so cute. I'm going to let them break down how eating out. Now, they say their title is How Eating Out Keeps You Poor. I don't know if I love the title, but I do think that their content in this is really good. So let's think about how eating out is maybe holding us back from some of our bigger financial goals that we have. Okay, I'll go ahead and play this. Hopefully somewhere. There we go. And then we'll come back. Please let me know in the chat if you can hear this.
Build a website you love with Wix. For your words.
Let's say Jake here goes out for dinner 3 times a week, spending $35 each time. He starts every workday with a latte and croissant at his local coffee shop and buys lunch at the local food court 4 days a week. Fridays are pizza day at the office. In 1 year, he spent over $9,000 on commercially prepared food and drinks, over 12% of his yearly salary of $75,000.
What if Jake could get those 3 dinners down to just 1 a week? And what if he started making coffee and breakfast at home and brown bagged lunches at work? Assuming that all those homemade meals would come out to around $5 each, that would mean a yearly savings of $4,420. That's enough for a Hawaiian vacation.
But wait, we're not done. What if Jake took those yearly savings and put them into an account earning 7% compound interest? In just 10 years, he'd have over $65,000, enough for a down payment on a house. In 20 years, he'd have almost $200,000, all from just eating at home more often.
Jake's example demonstrates that even in an era of burdensome healthcare and student loan obligations, you might have some wiggle room in your finances. Even a small cutback in dining out could allow you to finally pay off an onerous debt or build an emergency fund.
This might be easy advice to give, but harder to put into practice. Many of us dine out because we're too busy or tired to cook after a long day of work.
If we know how to cook at all.
And going to restaurants isn't just about the food. It's a social event, a place to see your friends, to connect with coworkers, take the edge off a stressful day.
So we're not saying never go out to eat, but if you want to cut down on this expense, you first have to know why you're spending the money in the first place. Is it a convenience or a luxury?
If it's a convenience, in other words, if you're eating out because you don't have time to cook at home, well, the problem might be a lack of preparation. After all, brewing a pot of coffee and toasting a bagel can be less time consuming than waiting in a Starbucks line and can potentially save you hundreds of dollars.
There are lots of resources on the web for how to make shopping and cooking cheap and simple, including this video we made about navigating the supermarket. But if you're still intimidated by the prospect, you could ease yourself into it by utilizing ingredients convenient, or grocery delivery services like Blue Apron or Instacart. These are definitely more expensive than doing your own shopping, but still cheaper than eating out.
We like to use cash at the supermarket to stay within a budget, but if you're trying to incentivize yourself, you could look into a credit card that gives rewards for grocery purchases. And it's always a good idea to keep some convenience foods like microwavable dinners in your freezer. That way, on days that you really don't feel like cooking, you'll have an alternative to stopping for takeout or ordering in.
On the other hand, if eating out is a luxury, that is, if you're doing it for social or psychological needs, there still might be ways to achieve that with less spending. For instance, you can share an entree. Restaurant portions are typically much larger than the average diner's appetite because it makes it easier for businesses to justify high prices. If you're there for the service and atmosphere, you can get that without overeating to the point of discomfort or leaving uneaten food behind.
If you have favorite restaurants you visit often, it might be a good idea to sign up for their email lists or check Groupon for details. But beware that these bargains are intended to make you visit more frequently. Same goes for diners' rewards cards. If you're not careful, these strategies might actually increase your monthly dining expenses.
Alcohol is one of the biggest markups for restaurants. So if you like to have a drink with dinner, you might want to find places that allow you to BYOB. Similarly, going to an ice cream shop after dinner is usually much cheaper than ordering dessert at the table.
And lastly, if you find yourself buying lunch just as an excuse to get out of the office, no one's forcing you to eat at your desk, hopefully. Take your brown bag to a nearby park or public space. It's the same psychological benefit without the cost.
Dining out is a big part of our culture, and it may be an important aspect of your social or professional life, so we're not suggesting you cut it out cold turkey.
But you shouldn't accept any large regular expense without asking yourself 3 fundamental questions. How much am I spending on this? What do I get out of it? And can I get the same benefit for less money? And that's our 2 cents.
Do you have any tips on
I love these guys. If you haven't ever seen 2 Cents before, hop on YouTube and check out some more of their videos. I think that was an excellent illustration of how reconsidering dining out has a lot of inherent benefits built in, and how to kind of tackle tackle the feelings, the things that kind of get in the way, or don't allow us to eat in more often or make it more challenging to eat in. So hopefully you had a nice takeaway from that video. Finally, the last habit I want to share with you is the importance of tracking food expenses in a budget. Okay, so I talked about meal planning, and meal planning is separate from tracking your food expenses in a budget. So meal planning is like the front end activity, and then tracking your expenses is the tail end activity of like, I've already grocery shopped, I bought my items, I'm cooking them up. Maybe you wait till the end of the week and then you go back and you plug in how much money you spent and where you spent that money. Okay. And if you really want to get detailed, you can also do that budget within a budget and start to illustrate, well, how much should I spend on meat, on produce, on dairy, on shelf-stable items, things like that. You are welcome to go as far into this as you'd like, but I will stress that tracking your food expenses, knowing whether or not you are overspending or underspending on your expectations around food, is really important to do. It is helpful to have a tool if you are somebody who, like myself, is pretty good at swiping away notifications on your phone. A budgeting app might not be the best fit for you. You may want something like a spreadsheet that's going to require you to be more active in inputting your expenses, taking a look at your transactions and plugging that all in, versus an app that's going to get connected with your debit card or your credit card and start to pull together your spending in one place automatically. Like, do what you need to do for you. The longer that you do this tracking, the better idea you're going to have about your spending and your eating habits, and figuring out then, okay, well, if I need to make any adjustments, which is part of the budgeting process in general, like, where am I going to make those adjustments? Maybe it's not what I'm eating, but where I'm grocery shopping, kind of thing, or what kind of items I'm buying. Maybe I do buy more name brand items, and I'm willing to make a switch to more generic items to save some money, or vice versa. Maybe you find that you actually have more flexibility to buy your name brand Lucky Charms because you want to have the Lucky Charms and not like the marshmallow stars or whatever it's called at Aldi, right? Like you will figure out what adjustments you're able to make. Know what your needs and your wants are. Know what you need in order to maintain a healthy lifestyle for yourself. Of course, we need food to live, but we also need to be cognizant of how our food choices are allowing us to be healthy and happy and enjoying a kind of quality of life that we want for ourselves. So be aware of those needs and wants. That will help you to make changes as needed. And don't stop. This is a kind of forever life skill. The more you do it, the more I think automatic it will be, and the less you have to actually think about it or put mental energy into, you know, being an active meal planner or being more active in tracking those expenses. Certainly become more expert the longer that you do it. But it's not something that we're ever just going to stop, because food is just never going to stop being a part of our daily expenses and something that we need to be accounting for as part of like our overall budget and how that impacts our overall financial wellness. Okay. So that's my last spiel to you. We do have on our website a regular meal plan budget tool. So if you want to grab those from the QR code, let's say you're on your laptop, but you've got your phone handy, you're able to scan to our meal plan budget tool for students, as well as our general budget sheet. They've both been updated for this year. So pull those out as needed, or you can visit the website financialliteracy.psu.edu directly to get access to those resources. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat for you right now. Okay. So, there we go. I have a frozen screen there. Here's what I'll say. If you are a student and you are really curious about using that meal plan budget tool and you'd like to get more than just a video tutorial, but you'd like to get some help backtracking the last, oh gosh, are we in week 5 already? Backtracking the last 5 weeks or so and inputting your spending so you can get a better sense of how the semester is going. We're almost halfway through. You're welcome to schedule an appointment to meet with one of our financial counselors on Starfish. So that's that green QR code. You can also click on the link that I posted in the chat for you. If you are somebody who would rather just do a little bit more asynchronous learning around budgeting and food budgeting more specifically, we do have a module that you can check out. We've got a financial wellness bookshelf, and these bookshelves also live at all of the Commonwealth campuses. There are texts written by different, personal finance gurus, I'll say, in their own right. And they often do talk about meal planning and food budgeting as a part of like how to become more financially healthy. Like it's not something to be ignored. You're welcome to take any of those books that you'd like for free. You don't have to return them. And we also have other downloadable tools on our website that I think you would find handy. That is all accessible via the yellow QR code. And I do believe I put the link through, to our website in the chat. Okay.